The most dangerous part of betrayal isn't what she did to you. It's what it quietly convinced you about yourself. That you were replaceable. That your loyalty was a weakness. That somehow, if you were just a little better, this wouldn't have happened. And right now, even though she's gone, she's still deciding how you feel, how you think, and how you see your own worth. If you don't understand what this moment is really doing to your identity, you won't heal from it. You'll rebuild your life around the wound and call it strength. Betrayal doesn't just hurt your heart. It rewires how you see yourself when no one is watching. After the shock fades, something quieter takes over. You start replaying moments, not to remember her, but to audit yourself. What you said, what you missed, where you failed. And slowly, without realizing it, your mind turns inward in the most destructive way possible. Not reflection, interrogation. This is the damage nobody warns you about. You stop trusting your instincts. You hesitate where you used to be decisive. You question your value in rooms where you once felt grounded. And the betrayal keeps working long after the relationship ends, because now it's no longer her voice in your head. It's yours. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your brain isn't searching for answers. It's searching for control. When something blindsides you emotionally, the mind convinces itself that if it can understand every detail, it can prevent the pain from happening again. So you chase closure. You analyze tone, timing, behavior. But closure is a trap. It keeps you mentally bonded to the moment that broke you. What's really happening is this. Your sense of identity took a hit. You weren't just betrayed by her. You were betrayed by the version of reality you believed in. And when that collapses, the brain clings to familiarity, even if that familiarity hurts. That's why letting go feels harder than staying stuck. Because staying stuck feels known. Healing feels like stepping into a version of yourself you haven't met yet. And this is where most men lose years. They think the pain means they're weak. They think the rumination means they love deeper. But what it actually means is your nervous system is trying to stabilize after emotional impact. Nothing is wrong with you. But if you don't recognize this shift, you'll mistake survival patterns for personality traits and call it growth. The betrayal didn't just end something. It created a question you can't ignore anymore. Who are you when the identity you built around someone else collapses? And what you do next determines whether this moment sharpens you or quietly erodes you from the inside. Cutting contact doesn't hurt because you still love her. That's the lie most people believe. It hurts because your nervous system learned to feel safe through her presence, her responses, her attention. And when that's suddenly gone, your body reacts the same way it would to a real threat. Tight chest, restlessness, that pull to check your phone even when you know there's nothing there. What you're experiencing isn't romance. It's withdrawal. Your brain was conditioned to associate her with relief, validation, and certainty. Even after betrayal, that conditioning doesn't disappear. So when you cut contact, your system panics, not because she was good for you, but because familiarity was ripped away. And the mind will always crave what it knows, even if what it knows caused the damage. This is why no contact feels so extreme. It feels like you're erasing something important, like you're overreacting, like you're being dramatic or cruel. But here's what's really happening. You're interrupting a loop that keeps your identity tied to someone who already exited your life. And loops don't break gently. They break loudly. Most people cave right here. They tell themselves they're just checking in, just staying civil, just keeping the door cracked. But that cracked door is enough to keep the attachment alive. Every update resets the wound. Every glance pulls you back into a version of yourself that no longer exists. And then you wonder why weeks go by and nothing changes. Here's the shift most never make. You're not cutting contact to punish her. You're cutting contact to recalibrate yourself, to let your nervous system learn safety without her, to let your mind detach from the identity that needed her approval to feel whole. That process feels brutal at first because you're standing without a crutch you leaned on for too long. But this is the part nobody tells you. On the other side of that discomfort is clarity. The thoughts slow down. The emotional spikes soften. You stop waking up with her name already in your chest. And one day, quietly, you realize you didn't need her absence explained. You needed your sense of self returned. Cutting contact isn't disappearance. It's detox. And detox always feels worse before the body remembers how to function on its own. One of the most damaging stories you can tell yourself after betrayal is that staying kind, available, or emotionally open makes you mature. You call it being the bigger person. You say you're choosing peace. But deep down, there's a quieter reason. You're afraid that if you fully step back, you'll lose whatever connection still proves it mattered. So you stay friendly. You respond politely. You keep access open just enough to feel relevant. And on the surface, it looks composed. It looks healed. But internally, it's self-abandonment disguised as emotional intelligence. Because being the bigger person doesn't mean staying reachable to someone who broke the contract. It means being honest about what continued access costs you. Here's what rarely gets said. Kindness without boundaries isn't strength. It's a slow leak of self-respect. Every time you show up calmly for someone who showed you they could walk away without consequence, your nervous system learns a dangerous lesson. That your discomfort comes second to keeping the peace. That your standards are flexible when history is involved. And over time, that erodes something deeper than confidence. It erodes trust in yourself. You start questioning why you still feel unsettled. Why the mature approach isn't bringing relief. Why you're stuck replaying conversations you swear don't matter anymore. It's because your body knows the truth even when your language doesn't. You're staying available to avoid the finality of loss. Being the bigger person doesn't mean explaining your pain, offering closure, or proving you're emotionally evolved. Growth doesn't announce itself. It withdraws quietly from spaces that require you to shrink. And the moment you stop negotiating your presence to appear understanding is the moment your healing actually begins. Because the goal was never to look healed. The goal was to stop bleeding in places that can't hold you anymore. After betrayal, many men swing to the opposite extreme. They decide they won't feel anymore. No reactions. No vulnerability. No emotional exposure. They call it control. But what they're really doing is sealing the pain inside and hoping discipline alone will suffocate it. And that never works for long. Emotional control isn't about going numb. It's about not letting emotion hijack your behavior. Suppression pretends the pain isn't there. Control acknowledges it without handing it the steering wheel. One turns you rigid. The other makes you stable. And the difference shows up later, when you least expect it. Unprocessed pain doesn't disappear. It leaks. It shows up as irritability, impatience, distrust, or emotional distance with people who never hurt you. It turns into overthinking at night and impulsive decisions during the day. And eventually, it becomes the reason the next connection feels harder, colder, or shallow. Not because the world changed, but because you never gave yourself permission to process what actually happened. Real emotional control follows a different sequence. You notice the emotion without judging it. You regulate your response instead of reacting impulsively. Then you act in alignment with who you're becoming, not who you were when the wound was fresh. That's discipline. That's strength. And it requires awareness, not avoidance. This is why silence is powerful when it's intentional and dangerous when it's forced. Intentional silence creates space to stabilize. Forced silence builds pressure. One leads to clarity. The other leads to emotional collapse later on. And most people never realize which one they're practicing until it costs them. Control doesn't mean pretending you weren't affected. It means refusing to let the pain turn you into someone you don't respect. It means you feel fully process honestly, and still choose responses that move your life forward. That's not weakness. That's mastery. Power doesn't return the day you stop missing her. That's what most people expect, and it's why they feel broken when the thoughts still show up. The real shift happens earlier, quieter, and far less dramatic. It happens the moment you stop needing her to understand what she did to you. For a long time, part of you wants her to feel it, to regret it, to realize what she lost. You imagine the apology, the realization, the moment she finally sees your worth. And it feels justified. But here's the truth that changes everything. Her understanding would not give you peace. It would only keep her emotionally relevant. The day power shifts is the day you realize that being remembered is not the same as being free. As long as your healing depends on her remorse, her guilt, or her clarity, your nervous system is still waiting on her to complete a story she already walked away from. And that waiting keeps you anchored to the past. This is where identity begins to separate. You stop measuring your progress by whether she reaches out. You stop reading meaning into silence or posts or indirect signals. You stop asking if she misses you and start noticing how much lighter your days feel when she isn't the reference point for your emotions. And the shift isn't loud. There's no victory moment. There's just a calm realization that her reaction is no longer required for your growth. That you don't need to be chosen again to choose yourself. That your worth doesn't need to be confirmed by someone who already proved they couldn't protect it. That's when power comes back. Not as dominance, not as indifference, but as self-ownership. The kind where you move forward without dragging her image behind you. And for the first time since the betrayal, your life actually feels like it belongs to you again. Pain makes a lot of promises. It tells you it will push you, that it will keep you sharp, that it will turn you into something stronger if you just sit with it long enough. But pain by itself doesn't build anything. Left alone, it just loops. It keeps you tired, distracted, and emotionally reactive. That's why waiting to feel motivated after betrayal is one of the biggest traps there is. Motivation is unstable when your emotional world has been shaken. Some days you wake up driven. Other days you feel empty. If your progress depends on how you feel, you'll stall the moment the pain shifts. What actually changes your life isn't emotional intensity. It's structure. Systems that don't care whether today hurts more than yesterday. Structure gives pain a job. It takes the excess energy and points it somewhere productive. Physical effort that exhausts the body so the mind can calm down. Mental focus that replaces rumination with direction. Simple routines that reduce decision fatigue when your clarity is low. This isn't about becoming extreme. It's about becoming consistent when consistency feels impossible. Start small but firm. Wake up at the same time. Move your body daily, even when you don't want to. Replace late-night scrolling with something that sharpens your mind instead of numbing it. Write down goals that scare you not because they're unrealistic, but because they require you to outgrow the version of yourself that tolerated what happened. Here's what most people miss. Structure doesn't just improve your life. It restores trust in yourself. Every day you follow through, you prove something quietly powerful. That you can rely on yourself even when everything else fell apart. And that rebuilds identity faster than any conversation or closure ever could. Pain becomes useful the moment it stops being something you sit in and starts being something that fuels movement. Not dramatic movement, disciplined movement. The kind that compounds slowly, invisibly, until one day you realize you're no longer trying to escape the pain. You've built a life that doesn't revolve around it anymore. The real danger of taking her back isn't that she might hurt you again. It's that you teach yourself a lesson you can't unlearn easily. You teach yourself that your boundaries collapse under pressure. That your standards are negotiable when loneliness shows up. And once that message sinks in, it doesn't stay confined to one relationship. It spreads. At first, Taking her back feels like relief. The anxiety quiets. The uncertainty softens. You tell yourself people make mistakes, that growth requires forgiveness. But beneath that calm is something unstable, a fracture in your internal authority, because part of you knows the truth. You didn't choose her again out of clarity. You chose her to escape discomfort. And when you override your own judgment to soothe pain, you lose trust in yourself. You start second-guessing decisions. You become hyper-aware of shifts in tone, distance, silence. You don't feel secure. You feel alert, waiting, watching. And that constant vigilance slowly drains you, even if things look fine on the surface. Betrayal changes the internal landscape. Once trust is broken, the mind doesn't forget. It scans for danger. And when you bring the source of that danger back into your life, you live in a state of low-level anxiety that never fully turns off. You may call it love. Your body calls it stress. This isn't about punishing her or holding grudges. It's about protecting your relationship with yourself. Because self-trust is built when your actions align with what you know is true. And every time you ignore that knowing, you weaken your ability to stand firm the next time life tests you. Walking away isn't cruelty. It's coherence. It's choosing not to betray your own judgment again. Because the man who rebuilds his self-trust doesn't look for comfort in familiar pain. He chooses the discomfort that leads to stability, even when his heart hasn't fully caught up yet. The urge for revenge is a subtle trap. It whispers that if you can hurt her back, if you can make her see what you lost, then finally, the story balances. But here's the truth most men never grasp. Revenge isn't liberation. It's a tie that keeps you bound to the person who broke you. Every act meant to prove something to her pulls your energy outward, away from what actually matters, your life. Freedom doesn't come from making her feel pain. Freedom comes from making her absence irrelevant. From building a life so precise, so locked into purpose, that her choices no longer register. You stop thinking about her, because your time and energy are no longer hers to command. That kind of life isn't built on emotion. It's built on habits, discipline, and relentless focus. You prioritize your body, your craft, your finances, your knowledge, your mental resilience. You don't wait to feel better. You build better anyway. Because action compounds faster than grief, faster than nostalgia, faster than regret. And here's the subtle genius of it. When you create this life, revenge becomes unnecessary. The pain she caused is still there, but it fuels momentum instead of obsession. Your mornings aren't about hoping she notices. Your nights aren't about wondering if she regrets. You don't measure your worth against her absence. You measure it by the man you see in the mirror and the legacy you're actively constructing. The men who truly rise after betrayal don't flaunt success to spite anyone. They rise quietly, deliberately, visibly strong because their lives themselves tell the story. They don't need to revisit the past. They don't need apologies, texts, or explanations. They need clarity, structure, and the courage to use pain as fuel. And that's the point most men never realize. The ultimate victory isn't revenge. It's evolution, the kind that leaves betrayal powerless, irrelevant, and forgotten. Not because you made it go away, but because you've moved so far ahead that it can't touch you anymore. This is the turning point, the moment where everything changes, not because someone apologized, not because the wound vanished, but because you decided it no longer defines you. You look in the mirror and see someone unfamiliar, but in the best way possible. The man staring back isn't haunted by betrayal. He's sharpened by it. He's disciplined because of it. He's fearless because he's learned that his worth was never dependent on anyone else. This is the rebirth of identity. The old you, the one who gave loyalty to someone unworthy, who replayed memories, who begged for closure, is gone. Every habit that kept you small has been dismantled. Every thought that made her presence necessary has been replaced with routines that anchor you to your purpose. Pain hasn't disappeared. It hasn't softened. But now it has structure. Now it has direction. Now it builds instead of breaks. And in this moment, clarity arrives. You no longer flinch at her name, her posts, her absence, or her return. They are irrelevant. You don't react. You don't overthink. You don't bargain with your emotions. You simply exist in a state of unwavering self-possession. Every decision, every action, every breath belongs to the man you've rebuilt. Someone who cannot be swayed by betrayal, nostalgia, or manipulation. This is more than healing. This is evolution. This is power reclaimed at its deepest level. And for the first time, you understand that the life you're creating isn't defined by her actions. It's defined by the boundaries you keep, the habits you honor, and the man you've decided to become. Nothing outside you can reach this version. Nothing outside can shake it. This is who rises. This is who wins. This is your identity reborn. Now it's your turn. Not to react. Not to wait. Not to hope for validation. The past has no power unless you hand it back. Your loyalty, your focus, your energy, they belong to you, not to someone who chose to betray them. This is the moment to decide who you are, not how you feel. Every choice you make from here forward is a declaration that your standards are non-negotiable, that your peace is sacred, that your growth cannot be bargained with. You don't heal by clinging to memories or chasing apologies. You heal by building a life so rooted in purpose, discipline, and clarity that nothing from the past can alter it. So commit to the man you're becoming. Cut the access that drags you backward. Replace reaction with structure, distraction with execution, longing with creation. Let pain be fuel, not a prison. Let betrayal be a mirror, not a chain. And let every day be a small victory, proving that you belong to yourself first. Because the only true measure of power isn't how much someone else regrets or notices. It's how fully you reclaim your mind, your body, and your life. And the man who masters this truth doesn't need revenge. He doesn't need closure. He doesn't need permission. He simply rises, steady, unshakable, and untouchable. Today, choose that man. Today, choose yourself.